'Tis the season to sneeze. If you're bothered by pollen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're like me and not usually bothered by pollen, and this year you are, well, you also know what I'm talking about. I spent time with microbiologists at the City of Houston's lab in the medical center who tell me the season actually starts in January when cold weather plants and trees begin to bloom. When this season starts to die down, we go right into the spring when another round of trees begin to pollinate, which is what we're experiencing right now, making for a really long, tough season for many.
So far, 2023 looks like it's going to be a fairly average year. Last year, we had a pretty late start, and so we had record numbers of pollens. But I think that was just because it was such a short season. This year, it looks like it's going to be pretty typical. Yeah, we're going to have the high numbers, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the record highs that we had last year.
Okay, so you might be asking, how do these scientists know? Well, they collect air samples from the roof of a building in the medical center twice a day, once early in the morning and then early in the evening when trees are pollinating the most. The scientists then pull these collections on film, they put them onto the film, they dye it pink, put it under a microscope, and then count by hand the pollens they can see on that film. This, as you might imagine, can take hours. The early morning count, depending on how much pollen is collected, is usually put out at around 9:30 in the morning. Our meteorologists then use this information to put out their pollen cast. So what we see on the news is actually from the morning before. If we update that at midday, then that is the new information just coming out that same day. This one collection site, though, however, is only one of about 80 across the nation. The next closest site is in Austin. And so when you talk with a lot of people, some people question the accuracy of this type of collection because, you know, this is a collection site that represents all of Houston and the surrounding areas. And, you know, you might be talking with a loved one who might be very bothered by pollen, and these scientists might say that the pollen count isn't high on a specific day. So it's all dependent on where you live. But with this said, I want to bring in our health expert and reporter, Haley Hernandez.
Hi,
good morning, welcome.
I wore my spring allergies shirt,
well,
right?
I'm sneezing right now, you're just sitting here.
Everything that's pollinated is making us sneeze and itch, and you've got the itchy eyes, the itchy throat.
The nose that won't stop running, a big problem for so many people.
And you haven't grown up in Texas, so
Correct.
You definitely don't have the immunity that some of us have been able to build up. But I gotta tell you, any Texan will tell you, this is kind of year-round for us. My allergies are actually the worst in the fall, but one ENT I spoke to said that March is the worst time for allergies because the spring allergies are so bad. So we are seeing a record early start to allergy season. Allergy triggering pollen is actually hitting the whole U.S. really hard. The southern and eastern U.S. is being hit earlier than ever. So we do see it all across Houston. There's cars that are covered in pollen. Mine is right now because I haven't gotten it washed. People are sneezing and sniffling. And as I mentioned, this is the worst time of year according to ENTs. Now, Mother Nature is just working even harder against us. We know that oak is super, super high right now. Weed, grass, mold spores, all of those things are really high, and obviously we're allergic to them. So it's bothering us. You might have itchy, runny eyes. You might even think that it's something else that it's not.
Well, yeah, especially in 2023 when we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with the flu. How do you know it's allergies?
It can be hard to tell. I mean, actually, it's even hard for me to tell. Even when I had the flu earlier this year, I was like, well, I think it's allergies. And then it was the fever. The fever is what they always say is the real signal. Yeah, the cough, fever, body aches, then you know this isn't just allergies, it's something else. But all of those regular symptoms, the sneezing and everything else, still go along with a virus. It's always the fever that tells you, uh-oh, I'm really sick.
I know a lot of people are like, we know this, we just want relief.
Yeah.
How can we get relief?
So Dr. Gavin Lenoble says that nasal sprays are highly effective, but those take some time to kick in. You're going to want to start using those at least a day or two before you know you'll need them. So if you're thinking about going out to the rodeo, if you're going out to your kids' baseball games, try and take those ahead of time. He says that the maximum benefit kicks in more than a week after consistent use. And I've heard some people say that it takes about 2 weeks for that to kick in if you're going to use those nasal steroids.
The nasal sprays are wonderful. Is there some way that people can get a faster relief?
So oral antihistamines are the fastest relief. You know, if you take a Benadryl, you know, like you're good,
out.
right?
No, but lights
And
out.
over-the-counter medicines like Benadryl are super safe, but that's what gives you those side effects like sleepiness. So you got to be careful. No driving.
No driving, especially no driving. But can you combine these?
Yeah. Dr. Lenoble said that you are totally safe to combine antihistamines and nasal steroids, but if you are combining those and you're not feeling relief, then it's probably time to see an ENT.
I would always want to start with a nasal steroid spray and give that a little bit of time. You have to be a little bit patient with them. The other thing you can do is you can use a combination of medications. So you can use a nasal steroid spray plus a topical antihistamine, so like a spray antihistamine. That can provide some additional benefit. If that doesn't work, then it's reasonable. It's actually a pretty good idea to be assessed probably by an ENT to make sure that it's not something else. You can have, say for example, chronic sinusitis that you think are just allergies, but in fact it's a totally different condition. We would treat it differently as well. In addition to that, if your symptoms are not well controlled with a nasal steroid spray and an antihistamine, then if it is just allergies, then getting allergy testing for consideration of immunotherapy is a good idea at that stage.
Yeah, and immunotherapy, you can get it in drops, pills, shots, and that can be tailored to your specific allergies. So that can help a lot of people finally take charge of their allergies. The good news is that you don't even actually need these therapies year-round unless the year-round allergies affect you, but you can plan to treat just on the seasons that are worst for you. So I know ragweed in the fall, for me, really that's a real killer. Yeah. And so he said, he was like, you can tailor it to only use your treatments in the fall when you know it's going to be really bad.
Haley and I are desk mates in the newsroom, and we were talking before the show started about consuming honey and bee pollen specifically. But when you do that, you have to know one thing, and that is to make sure you get it from where it is that you're living.
Locally, yeah. I actually buy my honey at HEB because they do have some local honey like that's here specifically. You can find a lot of honey that's like, oh, it's in Texas, but then you'll find like it's pollinated from bees in Dallas, and you really want to get it as locally as possible because those bees, like I said, they pollinate, and so then you're introducing a tiny bit into your system, and it can help you build up some immunity to our local allergies.
They truly